What's up, everyone? It is the 28th of November, and welcome back. If you celebrated Thanksgiving this week, hope everyone had a good Turkey Day. Spend some time with some of the people you love, and maybe even some time away from those you don't so much. In today's video, we're going to be talking about a devastating tragedy that occurred in Hong Kong just a couple days ago on November 26th, which was probably the deadliest fire to occur since I've been decoding. At least one of. In this video, we'll be talking about several riddles that I've been also speaking about in past similar videos. So as always, you can check the links down in the description below for other work I have on large fires and similar stories. So on Wednesday, this fire broke out at an 8-building apartment complex. I believe 6 of the buildings caught fire. And in this blaze, the fire spread so quickly because all of these buildings were surrounded in a bamboo structure that had been erected in order to help renovate and modernize this apartment complex. And one must wonder, as we have with previous similar fires, if there was something nefarious about it. And in this video, I'm going to lay out the case using the language of numerology, this occultic system of letters and numbers that, when compared to dates on the calendar, suggests that there is something deeper behind many of these news stories we see play out on the world stage. Most of these ciphers on your screen are based in the standard alphabetic order, with the addition of the Latin or Agrippa's key cipher. And these are the ciphers we'll be looking at today to study the numerology of what occurred. We're going to look at how this event is connected to an ongoing riddle I've been talking about. For instance, in my video on the crash of Flight 2976 in Louisville, I discussed how there was a riddle for the Oklahoma City bombing and Timothy McVeigh. And it is interesting because, here we have a disaster at a high-rise building a couple weeks later. And again, one of the deadliest such incidents. So far, over 100 people confirmed dead, with literally hundreds more missing. Which seems a little bit low, actually, considering that this complex housed something like 16,000 people. So anyway, let's take a look at some of the numbers of this date, November 26th, and see how it aligns with the Gematria of Wang Fuk Court, which is where this occurred, the Wang Fuk Court fire. Now, in the Latin method of Gematria, which I believe is the most significant in the study, Wang Fuk Court sums to 1597, which is a pretty intriguing number because not only is this a prime number, but it's also a Fibonacci number. So 1597, the 251st prime, and the 17th Fibonacci number. Now, another thing that stood out about this fire date is that it occurred on a date with primary numerology of 82. And this is a number we'll look at a little bit more later on in this video. Notice how the number 82 sums to the same 4 digits, 1579, a lot like 1597. But this 1597, again, the 251st prime number, and 251 just so happens to be the time that many media outlets report that this fire was first reported to local authorities. 2:51 p.m. In the reverse alphabetic order, the phrase ritual sacrifice also equals 251. And indeed, the code of sacrifice is very heavy in this. So speaking of this number, 1597, this blaze occurred 597 days after the most recent total solar eclipse. And a theme I've also uncovered in previous videos about fires is that these events appear to be connected to the eclipse code, as the sun, the great ball of fire in the sky. And these rituals appear to be attributing that with the large fires in these apartment buildings. But back to this number, not only is it the 251st prime number, like the time that it was first reported, but it's also the 17th Fibonacci. Notice the date of the fire, 11/26/25. When you add these digits together individually, it sums to 17. Notice how the word kill equals 17 in reduction. Sacrifice, 170. Ritual sacrifice, 107. Ritual human sacrifice, 1700. So this is a number we commonly see embedded in the dates of similar stories. I believe there was another 107. Yeah, ritual sacrifice, same phrase. Another important element to this is Yale University and its Skull and Bones Society. And once again, this is not to suggest that the members of Skull and Bones had anything to do with this, but the same numbers that are attributed by this society are found in these worldwide disasters with great regularity. Last year, I made this video, Superstream 74, explaining how Yale University was connected to the Tower card of the Tarot's major arcana. This riddle is, of course, best highlighted in the September 11th attacks, where we literally saw people jumping from a burning tower. And you can see how this symbolism is represented in the event that just occurred in Hong Kong. So first off, notice how this was all on the 330th day of the year. In the reverse alphabetic order, Hong Kong apartment fire sums to 330. And of course, here we see the digits in the number 33, which happens to match ritual human sacrifice in Gematria. Recall that the Twin Towers in New York City were destroyed 33 years after construction began. Twin Towers 330. The Twin Towers were also called the World Trade Center, or WTC, which equals 46, and this is another important number to the date. The Hebrew words for murder and kill both equal 46. Hong Kong sums to 46 in reduction, just like the word sacrifice. 46 and 62. And both of those numbers were found in the date of the blaze. The life lesson number of this date was 46. Also, 11 plus 26 plus 25 is 62. More numbers aligning with the sacrifice code. But, of course, there is more. Now, this building fire happened exactly 32 years and 9 months after the World Trade Center bombing in 1993. 329, the reverse value of ritual human sacrifice. And also consider the date of that bombing in 1993, February 26th, the date written 226. The word sacrifice is 226 in standard. And another event that this appears to be connected to is the bombing of the Georgia Guidestones, which happened back in 2022. Yeah, it looks like I got one of the measurements wrong on here. So we'll skip this for now, but this number 322, very important. Remember, the Guidestones opened on March 22nd, 322. This occultic monument, which was all about population reduction, the Guidestones equals 223. Now, the 322nd day of the year is November 18th, the date written 1118. And why do I point this out? Well, back in 1995, Timothy McVeigh allegedly carried out the Oklahoma City bombing, another disaster on a high-rise. Wednesday's fire in Hong Kong was 11,180 days after the Oklahoma City bombing. Now, the 322nd prime number, again, 322, the number on the Skull and Bones Society's emblem, this has a prime number connection of 2137. The 322nd prime number. And look at how old Timothy McVeigh would have been on Wednesday. 21,037 days old. That bombing killed 168 people, which is the number of days after the date McVeigh was executed on June 11th. From June 11th to November 26th, 168 days. 1068 is the standard gematria of the phrase the tower. So these here provide some pretty intriguing alignments. And again, I don't believe it's random, as I just discussed the Oklahoma City bombing riddle in this video I made about the plane crash in Louisville, which happened on the same day that Zohran Mamdani was elected the mayor of New York City. Of course, he's the first Muslim mayor in New York. Muslim terrorists accused of the 9/11 hijackings. And we get a plane crash on the same day as his election. Also, the flight number of that crash was just one off of the number of people killed in the 9/11 attacks. So another reason I brought up this Georgia Guidestones bombing is that this bombing in 2022 happened on July 6th. Which just so happens to be the birthday of George Bush, the 43rd U.S. president, a graduate of Yale and member of Skull and Bones who was in office during the 9/11 attacks. So measuring from George Bush's 7/6 birthday to the Guidestone bombing was 76 years. This seems like no coincidence, as Skull and Bones equals 76, Secret Society equals 76, human sacrifice and blood sacrifice equals 76. Now, I also want to talk about how this all connects to American presidents. Donald John Trump equals 76. Wednesday's fire in Hong Kong was 76 days after the date September 11th. However, Wednesday was also exactly 76 weeks after another major residential fire in Kuwait. Back on June 12th of 2024, 50 people were killed, most of them Indian foreign nationals, when a residential high-rise building went ablaze in Mangaf, Kuwait. And this fire, on June 12th of last year, was on the 100th birthday of former President George H.W. Bush. So check this out. This fire, June 12th of 2024, was exactly 100 years after the birth of another Skull and Bones member, George H.W. Bush. And in Latin gematria, the word fire equals 100. How perfect, right? This fire on George Bush's birthday. Well, this fire in Hong Kong was the deadliest peacetime fire in the region since let me rephrase that. The fire on Wednesday was the deadliest I think, ever during peacetime in Hong Kong. Previously, the deadliest fire was in 1996, the Garley Building fire, where 41 people were killed. This fire was on the date November 20th of 1996, and November 20th is the birthday of the last president to be in office, Joe Biden. Another similar fire that came to mind was the Grenfell Tower fire, which happened in London back in 2017. This blaze was on June 14th, which is the birthday of the current U.S. President, Donald Trump, who was also in office at the time of that fire in London. So it's strange that, a lot of the fires that seem to be connected to this one in Hong Kong all occurred on the birthday of U.S. presidents. And once again, the number 76, a major skull and bones number. Very significant here. And I thought it was interesting that the phrase apartment complex, which certainly this was, the Wang Fuk Court complex, this has gematria of 885, which matches skull and crossbones in the same cipher. This phrase also sums to 223, which is, of course, the reverse of the 322 on their emblem. This brings us to the major alignment with Yale University that occurred in the year 2023, when the school turned 322 years old. All by grand design, I would suggest. And we will measure to this date in a second. In fact, let's just do this now. From Yale's special Skull and Bones anniversary to the date of this fire was 2 years and 48 days, or 780 days. The phrase human sacrifice sums to both 248 and 780. Hong Kong equals 248 with capital letters. Skull and Bones equals 780 with the ampersand. And don't forget President George Walker Bush. His name equals 78 and 780. Recently, I made this video about George W. Bush meeting with King Abdullah, the crown prince of Saudi Arabia. And I believe it was this video here that I discussed this, as we just had another foreign visitor to the White House from Hungary. Well, I thought it was interesting that the fire in Hong Kong was 7,520 days after that meeting, which syncs to Skull and Bones 752. But back to this 248. Again, 2 years and 48 days after Yale's big Skull and Bones anniversary. The digits 248 are also found in the gematria of the phrase, the tower, which is, of course, the text on this special tarot card. Well, back on Christmas Day of the year 2012, of course, this was in Asia, over in South Korea, Hong Kong also in Asia. There was this film called The Tower that came out, again, on Christmas Day of 2012. Well, if you measure from the release of this film to the date of the Tower fire in Hong Kong, it was exactly 12 years and 48 weeks later. The phrase the Tower equals 1248. Shout out to Widow's Son for this find. I was going to link his X post in my post. I don't know if he's shadow banned on the platform or what. But I was just simply unable to find it, so my apologies for that. But this is a movie I know I've looked at before in regards to other previous Tower riddles. And what are the odds of this, man? From that film's release to this tower fire, 12 years, 48 weeks. The same number we discuss with this tower code so often. Now, thanks for mentioning the number 614 in the chat. I'm going to have to bring that up later. So the tower is the 16th card of the tarot, right? 16, the Roman numerals that appear. Well, look at the gematria of Wang Fuk Court and Wang Fuk in ordinal and reverse. You get 160 ordinal, and Wang Fuk is 106 reverse, which represent the number 16 in numerology. Now, the tower riddle was very important in another major building collapse in Surfside, Florida back in 2021. I know I'm jumping around a little bit in this video, but all of this stuff truly is connected. You know, talking about high-rise disasters and tragedies. Notice how the city of Surfside equals 614, which is Trump's birthday. 614. Someone in the chat just mentioned that the fire was 614 days after a fire and terrorist attack in Moscow, which I'll have to look at in a little bit. Anyway, Florida is, of course, where Donald Trump has his Mar-a-Lago estate. And Surfside, Florida, and Champlain has the same gematria as the tower and Twin Towers, right? And this was all about the tower riddle. Again, this post is linked in my most recent post. Wednesday's fire in Hong Kong was 1,616 days after the Surfside building collapse. Also notice the current brown lunation number for the fire in Hong Kong was 1273. Hong Kong, China sums to 273, whereas tower equals 273 with prime numbers. This blaze was 273 days after the date of the World Trade Center bombing, which was 2 years, 7 weeks, and 3 days before the Oklahoma City bombing. All right, so for the next part of this video, I want to talk about how this is all synced up with the code of solar eclipses. And again, there seems to be some kind of logic here. The dates on which the great fire in the sky is extinguished is connected to the date that great fires emerge on the surface of the planet. And to start with, we're going to talk about this special solar eclipse that occurs in 2027. This is not the next total solar eclipse, but it is a highly significant one that belongs to the most important Saros series, 136, which began in the year 1360, on Trump's birthday, of course. Now, in 2027, we get an eclipse that peaks over the nation of Egypt. See, the point of greatest eclipse here is very close to the city of Luxor. And in Latin gematria, the nation of Egypt has the same 572 gematria as skull and bones. Now, the Skull and Bones Society is also known as the Brotherhood of Death, which sums to this special 187 in the alphabetic order, often recognized as the homicide code. Wednesday's fire was 1 year, 8 months, and 7 days before this eclipse. Remember, Society of Jesus and Total Eclipse both equal 187. The Society of Jesus uses an eclipsed sun as its emblem. But of course, there's also 2 more eclipses that this is all connected to. And this brings us to the Great American Total Eclipses that happened in 2017 and 2014. These 2 total solar eclipses over the United States were separated by exactly 82 lunar phases. When Yale University turned 322 years old in 2023, it was exactly 82 sidereal months after the first eclipse. And this number 82 is also relevant to the eclipse over Egypt because it happens on August 2nd, or 8/2. And the fire in the Tai Po district of Hong Kong happened on a date with primary numerology of 82. As mentioned earlier, the number 82 has the same 4 digits as Wang Fuk Court. The fire was 3,019 days after the first Great American Eclipse. That's the 433rd prime number, which brings us to the Gematria of solar eclipse, 433 in Latin. In turn, 433 is the 84th prime number, which is found in solar eclipse as well. Skull and crossbones, skull and bones, and the number 82 all also equal 840. So that's pretty interesting, but what if we measure to the second Great American Eclipse? There we see it's been 597 days since that eclipse. And again, those are the digits found in Wang Fuk Court and 82. Also, earlier, I mentioned how we had this Garley building fire, right? As the Wang Fuk Court fire surpassed this blaze as the deadliest inferno in the history of Hong Kong. Well, the day before the Wang Fuk fire was 10,597 days after the Garley fire. So yes, this is one day off, but I mean, we have a 5-digit number that lines up very well. So this number 82 also stands out because in leap years, March 22nd, or 322, is the 82nd day of the year. So when the Georgia Guidestones opened, for instance, back in 1980, it was on the 82nd day of the year, 322. The phrase ritual sacrifice also equals 82, while ritual human sacrifice sums to the 82nd prime number. And just as I mentioned at the top of the video, but I feel like it's worth mentioning again, not only is this the 17th Fibonacci, but it's also the 251st prime number, which is the time that the fire broke out, 2:51 p.m. But 251 is also its own prime number, the 54th prime number. So is it a coincidence that Tower sums to 54 in reverse? The 1996 Garley fire, which was on Joe Biden's birthday, was exactly 54 years after Biden was born. And prior to this week, that was the deadliest peacetime fire in the history of Hong Kong, China, which equals 54. Notice how Biden's age ended in the digits 322 on Wednesday. And if you use square numbers, the name Biden equals 322 with squares. Don't forget, 82 is the first number with gematria of 666 in any of the common ciphers. This is, of course, connected to the Brotherhood of Death, which lines up with 666, the number of the beast. some upside down 666s when measuring to the bushes. Back to this number 614 that I mentioned earlier. Someone threw this out in the chat. And I guess I'm just going to wing it for a little bit here at the end of this video. Okay, so on March... Oh, of course, that was on March 22nd. Now, I think I might have done a post on this. Yes, I did. This was the attack that was connected to the debut of a Formula One driver named Behrman. Yeah, I did decode this. Now, this is interesting. Okay, so on 3/22 of 2024, we had this attack in Russia. And so it was a terror attack and a fire. This fire in Hong Kong was 614 days later. Which is interesting because this fire was also 614 days before the 2027 eclipse. 614, the birthday of President Donald Trump, and the date of the deadly Grenfell Tower high-rise fire back in 2017 on Trump's birthday. I think it's reverse caps where President Donald Trump even sums to, President Donald J. Trump 614 with reverse capital letters, where capital and small letters are mixed together. Trump was 166 days after his birthday. Remember, the tower equals 166 with capital letters, like twin towers in ordinal. This was a number that I mentioned in regards to the Surfside, Florida collapse, which equals 166. Champlain was the name of the towers, 166. And Surfside has that same 614. Another thing I wanted to look at, and I have no idea if this is going to give us any alignments or not. So Wang Fuch Court sums to this special number, which is both a prime and a Fibonacci. And I remember this number from a long time ago, because in 2018, we had the Marjorie Stoneman Douglas shooting, and the name Marjorie Stoneman is also 1597. And remember, there were 17 children killed in that high school shooting, whereas Marjorie Stoneman equals the 17th Fibonacci number. Just like how the Wang Fuch Court fire had 17 numerology. So this might be a total dud here, but... Well, it was exactly 406 weeks later. And I did mention this number because Hong Kong is 46. Just like sacrifice. The date of the fire also had numerology of 46. So I guess it is a little interesting that this happened 406 weeks after the Marjorie Stoneman shooting. An event which I don't think is really much, connected beyond that. Desk Boy in the chat throwing out some Fuzzy Zeller facts. I did see that he just passed away. Definitely wasn't planning on looking at him during this video. It's got that 11/11 birthday. 66th and 67th primes. That'll be an interesting decode. I don't tend to like to do things live too often because, you know, there's a lot of different ways you could take these things. And I definitely need to look more into that. So keep your eyes peeled for more, but this video I wanted to explain more about this special tower riddle and how this deadly blaze in Hong Kong was synced up to similar deadly blazes, which all happened on U.S. presidents' birthdays. And just as a recap at the end here, we had the Georgia Guidestone bombing, which happened on July 6th, the birthday of George W. Bush, his 76th birthday, in fact. We had George H.W. Bush, his father, born on June 12th. George H.W. Bush oversaw Operation Desert Storm, which kicked Saddam Hussein out of Kuwait. And then on George Bush's 100th birthday, we had a major building fire in Kuwait. The word fire equals 100, like how old George Bush would have been. This fire in Hong Kong, the deadliest in Hong Kong since the Garley building fire, which was on Joe Biden's 54th birthday. Tower equals 54 in Gematria. And we had the Grenfell Tower fire on June 14th, the birthday of President Trump. That was his 71st birthday. And Donald John Trump equals 710 in Satanic. That was also in the year 17, for the record. All right, everybody. That's going to do it for this video. Thanks to everybody for tuning in. Whether you're watching live or checking things out archived, do feel free to like, share, subscribe. Check out gematrinator.com for some powerful calculation tools. Some news coming very soon, hopefully after this weekend, about some new powerful tools to help take decoding to the next level. If you'd like to support this work and ensure myself and other decoders can help or can continue bringing this to you, become a member of gematrinator.com. Small fee a month, supports the website, keeps the servers up, keeps me doing decodes, all that good stuff. Check out the links in the description for more related content. Also check out the Gematrinator shop for some nice winter gear. Peace, love, God bless. We'll talk to you all next time. See ya!